Landon Dickerson goes on the record about slip and slide gate. And the Eagles have a new right guard for now. Coming up next on the PHLY Eagles podcast. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the PHLY Eagles podcast. The fourth practice of training camp is in the books, but the patty cake sessions are over. Tomorrow they put on the pads. Bo Wulf, Zach Berman, lots to talk about. Some moving and shaking along the offensive line. We've got a weekend practice to talk about. James Bradberry broke his silence. Lots of interesting stuff. How you doing?
I'm doing well. Excited for the show. We're starting to get into the thick of it now. Right.
Yeah, but this is all preamble. Tomorrow they put on the pads.
Sure.
And you know it's not football, Zach, until they put on the pads.
What was the Kobe Dean's quote?
He said today, these T-shirts and shorts is cute, but we play football. Come on.
Well, there is validity to that. There's only so much evaluation that can be done. You and a student observer at practice are probably waiting for the one-on-ones, O-line,
Let's
D-line.
go. Come on.
And you don't do O-line, D-line one-on-ones without pads. So that will start up. I think we'll have a better sense of the lines of scrimmage, but I think that from a personnel perspective, we're starting to get more of a sense now.
I mean, football without pads, Zach, is like writing without verbs. You know what I mean? We're just pretending. It's the most important thing that you have.
Honestly, it's probably writing without adjectives.
No, adjectives are superfluous. You don't need adjectives.
No, well, I'm saying
you need verbs. You need good active verbs.
Okay.
Football without pads, it's just
yeah, that's not a debate.
ball there.
Fair enough. Well, the ball today, I thought Jalen Hurts was throwing the ball well, as he has for four consecutive four practices.
Well,
now.
that's interesting. I thought that Jalen himself was fine today.
Yes.
He was good, but this was the first day of the four practices so far, although I didn't get to see Saturday's practice either, where it seemed like the defensive line was really making things difficult for the offense. The pocket was muddied today. There were a couple times where Jalen Hurts had to throw the ball away.
Mm-hmm.
There were a couple coverage sacks. This was the best day that I think the defensive line has had so far.
Yeah, Jalen Carter in particular looked like.
I thought Jordan Davis especially had a good day, actually.
Okay, that too. Fresh haircut, more aerodynamic. Imagine.
Yes, yeah, he's got the high top fade. Well, not a high top, just a regular fade going on. Interesting look for Jordan Davis.
I like a fade.
I know you do.
Yes.
Okay. Did you have something else to say about Jalen Carter?
No, there's much we can talk about with practice. I'll defer to you for direction. I was just trying to steer us away from the verb adjective conversation. So
okay.
Yes.
Well, let's save the defensive line for a little bit later, because I think let's start at the top with the most important news of the day, and that is Nick Sirianni saying before practice that Tyler Steen is going to be out for a little bit. Didn't give a specific timetable. He is dealing with an ankle injury, and we talked about this a few weeks ago, maybe a month ago or so, that, I made the case that Howie Roseman in his heart of hearts was probably kind of hoping that at some point Tyler Steen might suffer a minor injury, because then
you and Howie are kindred spirits.
Because then you get a chance to see Mekhi Becton at right guard, and there's no drama to it, right? Tyler Steen has not been demoted.
Exactly.
If Mekhi Becton looks great, it's a very easy, listen, we still believe in Tyler Steen long term. He's going to be an important part of this team, but we don't want to mess with things right now. Mekhi Becton looks good. We're feeling good. And if Mekhi Becton doesn't look good, and then it's a very easy, he got that little tryout with, no harm, no foul. Tyler Steen is back and ready to compete at right guard. And it was very interesting today because there was no Lane Johnson suffering a toe injury day-to-day, not a big deal. But that meant that there was the starting right tackle spot open as well, which is where Mekhi Becton has been the times that Lane Johnson has been absent. And he wasn't at right tackle. He was at right guard, because now we are moving forward, I believe, with Mekhi Becton is getting this shot, and he has a chance right now to win and earn the job for the rest of the season if all things go well for him.
Well said. To build on upon that, Tyler Steen goes down in Saturday's practice, right? When Steen goes down, Darian Kennard goes in at right guard. And I know there was some curiosity from some others about why Kennard went in and not Becton.
I was like screaming at my Twitter feed, like, what are these reporters have covered training camp before? What are we doing, guys?
Exactly. So the reason
girls.
being there is that it was a tackle day for Becton, right? Becton was playing tackle that day.
Right.
So the way you framed it about today is much better in that Lane Johnson was missing today. This wasn't an injury that occurred during practice. You knew going in, first team right tackle, first team right guard was open. The Eagles had a deliberate choice to make. By putting Mekhi Becton at right guard, I don't think you can read too much into that at all. I think that is an indication of what we've been discussing since we saw Becton at guard. The fact that Becton has played guard as much as he has during the summer, it's 4 practices now, but in those first 2 sessions shows you they're not just looking at him as the swing tackle. They want to see how he can do on the inside. For the reasons you mentioned with Steen, I don't think they wanted to make just a 1-for-1 swap yet. What does that do for Steen's confidence? What kind of message does that send, right? There's a reason why Becton was playing left guard, I believe, early on, right? They had that opening with Dickerson. You can put him there. You can evaluate him, but I don't think they wanted to do, at least early on, the Becton's playing right guard over Steen. Now
it's a very convenient order that things have happened here.
So now that Steen goes down, and by the way, this is I said this on Anthony's show this morning. This is a critical time for this to occur. Like you said, pads go on. They have practice. So they had practice today. They have practice tomorrow with pads. They have a walkthrough Wednesday, a practice Thursday night, and then a walkthrough presumably Friday and off day Saturday. So if you consider Steen's injury to be, a few days, then this is valuable time for Becton to show how he looks there, and the conversation that you just said theoretically could actually occur. That, man, there's something to see here. Jeff Stoutland said it in the spring when we asked about going one on, one off, that type of thing. He said he wants that 5-wheel drive unless there's something that happens that makes you think we really need to take a look at this. I think this might be the thing that happens that makes them really want to take a look at this.
He has also talked about the ideal body type he has for that guard is a big guy. Now, Mekhi Becton has not started at guard in the NFL. He has only been a tackle, right? In the past, he has even bristled at the idea of not being a left tackle, of course, a former first-round pick. We have talked about this for a while. The Eagles, throughout the draft process, bringing in first-round likely prospects along the offensive line. They were very much, if the board had fallen a certain way, willing to take somebody who could step in and start right away at right guard in the first or second round. The board did not work that way, and so right when the draft was over, they go out and sign Mekhi Becton.
Yeah,
right?
Sunday night. So literally the day after the draft.
To a significant contract and incentive laden, right? Can make over $5 million. And so it was very clear that this was something that was on their mind. Tyler Steen, I'm sure that they like Tyler Steen, but they have never been reliant upon Tyler Steen. They have never thought like, this is our guy for sure. For all the reasons we have talked about last year, they give Sua Opeta the spot over him. They don't even love Sua enough to re-sign him. So Tyler Steen, for whatever reason, has never gone and grabbed that job in their minds. And so now with Becton, it is an opportunity, and we will see how it goes. I'm sure they will, bring along Tyler Steen at a nice conservative pace and see how things go. But there's no guarantee that Mekhi Becton's going to take this job and win it. He has been an up and down player throughout his career. I think there's probably a case to be made that maybe guard is going to be better for him because he doesn't have to move as much, right? But this is going to be interesting to follow, and it is convenient that it's now, let's put the pads on and see how things go.
Yes, and I just want to add, this is not like a media creation in this sense, okay? When you sign Mekhi Becton, the context that you just laid out, this is a career tackle. This is someone who's never played guard. And so your first spring with the team, what do you do with him? You put him at guard. That goes to show you that if you did not believe throughout the draft process.
And not as if they were stacked at tackle, right?
Exactly.
You've got Fred Johnson, but that's it.
Yeah.
There's very much an opportunity to have a better swing tackle.
Yeah, so we said throughout the draft process how offensive line was the most likely position they would take in the first round. Well, 6 went in the first 21 picks, right? So if Troy Faltanu or someone like that slips, maybe even if Amarius Mims slips, it could be a different conversation at number 22. But they're looking at these top offensive linemen throughout the spring. Okay, they don't take one early on. I didn't perceive that as a vote of confidence in Tyler Steen, and I said once they put Becton there, and we talked about this. This is a job that Becton could win. I still put Steen as the front runner because the fact that Steen was in there, I thought he would have the opportunity to earn it, and he still does have the opportunity to earn it. But I think seeing Becton in there, and Becton has natural talent. Brian Baldinger, who knows far more about offensive line play than me, maybe you and him are comparable.
Yeah,
But a Baldy who knows the Jets quite well, right? Spends time up there in Florham Park. He has said, I think his quote was that like Becton could be the best run blocker on the team or something of that nature. I mean, the sheer size of him
He's a big, strong, powerful man.
Hard to find. And you framed it well about his inconsistencies, but there has been high level play. If you look at like the high water mark, it does.
Well, his
stand
rookie
out.
year, he was good.
Yeah.
Last year, I think he was even still up and down, and there have been some injuries and conditioning stuff, but certainly the talent is there,
Yes.
and he's still only 25 years old, right? This is a chance for the Eagles to maybe find some hidden value. He has talked about like he kind of wants to be here for a while.
He chose here,
right? If all things go well. Now, to be fair, the offensive line was not great today. They were also missing Lane Johnson, and I thought that Becton was overrun a few times. But this is a new opportunity. If we can just beat splain the canard from Saturday, that like. You set the depth chart for the day's practice,
yes, exactly.
right? And so for that day, Darian Kennard was the second team right guard, and he had done some work there. And so if something happens in the middle of practice, guys just bump up
exactly.
a spot. You're not moving things around. It's not a game,
exactly.
Right?
Well said.
So when the Steen injury happens, they have an opportunity to then reset and say, okay, this is what we need to see. Steen's going to be out. It's also interesting that Matt Hennessy, who we talked about in the spring, spent all his time that we saw at right guard. He was working at center. Today, he was back as the second-team right guard. Some of that is because Brett Toth was also back, but he wasn't even a full participant. So all of this is to say that like the right guard competition is very much now open.
You are correct there. Although I do think Kennard is someone who we should at least have on our radar as maybe pushing for.
And by the way, he was a tackle today. He was not at guard. He was the second team right tackle behind Fred Johnson. So
someone to have on our radar. But yeah, when it was happening the other day, I was saying they're not looking at Darian Kennard as like a right guard over Becton.
People?
It was that Becton was a tackle that day. Had Becton been playing right guard, Becton would have just pumped. He would have bumped right up.
Now, if you had to go prisoner of the moment, put your turkeys right now, who's the starting right guard? Would you have the plurality on Becton, or would you have Steen at the top?
I will go 52-48. I'm making this like a presidential election.
No field.
Oh, no field. No, I think Steen or Becton. And I said that
and
before.
For who?
Yeah.
For Becton or
I'm
Steen?
going Becton right now. Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I think I'd go 48 Becton, 42 Steen, 10 Hennessy.
I don't think it's gonna be Hennessy, but
I know you're big on your boy Max Sharping, who's like stuck on the third team. I don't know.
Maybe it's
that hot tip you got on Sharpie, but
no, maybe it's the Wisniewski thing where all right, you have this solid pro who could be the backup, who could step in. It's not apples for apples, so I don't want to say I've seen this movie before, but I think back to.
I guess I should put one on Kennard.
Okay, I think back to the 2021 training camp when there was truly a competition between Andre Dillard and Jordan Mailata. And then Dillard goes down in camp.
Yes.
And it was like, all right, we've seen what we need to see.
But that one was also a little bit different
That's
because
what I said.
it was a little bit deeper into camp, and Mailata had already been completely outplaying him.
But that was the end of the competition.
Yes.
At that point. And so I don't think, one thing I don't think is that they want to go into like the middle of August with this up in the air. I think knowing Stoutland, I'm not saying Stoutland and I are tight, but like knowing Stoutland's history, I should say, I think he's going to want to figure this out sooner than later.
I think if Becton stays healthy, it's his job. Mm-hmm. That's kind of how I think.
Now, we're really getting ahead of ourselves here. If Becton is the starter, is this one of those August contract extensions?
Oh, that's interesting.
Where you try to get ahead of it.
That's interesting. I feel like Becton's history is such that you would want to play it a little bit slower to make sure that you actually saw him on the field in a regular season game. But that's a good
because that's what
arbitrage opportunity.
That's what they did with Mailata that year. It was like, we're not even bringing this to the year.
Yeah.
I remember being in the Atlanta airport down for week 1.
Yes.
And they're like, we're getting you on this deal right now.
Yeah. I don't know. That's a good question. Anything else about the as the red guard turns? The Lane Johnson thing, our understanding is very minor.
Yeah, toe injury, nothing much. He was there watching practice. I don't think there's much to worry about there. Landon Dickerson's back at practice.
Yes, and Landon Dickerson, he addressed the elephant in the room. While we know that there are many ways,
bigger deal than this than I did.
There are many ways to lacerate a toe.
Yes,
he said he had heard these rumors. And,
he's watching the show.
I gave him a chance. I asked him. I said, "How'd you lacerate the toe?" He said it wasn't on the slip and slide. I heard that was out there. It was not. I stepped on something in the yard. Now. Stepped on something in the yard. I mean, could that have been related to setting up the slip and slide or getting the slip and slide off? It's also important to say, budding, aspiring reporters out there, you cannot say definitively it didn't happen on the slip and slide. He said it didn't happen on the slip and slide.
Yes, but this was, I felt much ado about a slip and slide. Is that I was listening back to the show and I'm like, we're really belaboring the possibility. I mean, we treated it. I have to be careful with how I use this phrasing right now, but like we treated it like the Zapruder film almost, right? Like we were trying to dissect. You said, how many ways could you lacerate a toe? And I said, there's many ways to lacerate a toe. No. And then you asked me,
you started with how there are many ways to lacerate a toe. Then I asked how many there are.
And then
But Julia noted they had the hay at the bottom of the thing. Could have been on the hay,
Oh, well, that's intrepid reporting right there by Julia, right? I did not know. I'm not a slip and slide expert by any means. I don't know what goes into this slip and slide. I know that there's
slipping
water.
or sliding.
Yes, yeah, exactly. But I didn't realize you put hay down there.
I think it depends. I think that's what they did. Yeah,
I do know there's a lot of ways to lacerate a toe.
One of the things that you do know.
Yes, more than a slip and slide. A matter of fact, if someone walked in here and they said they lacerated their toe, I wouldn't have said slip and slide, huh? Like that would
well,
not.
No,
have been...
but if it was coming off of them posting a lot of videos of a slip and slide, you might be more willing to think that was the case. Not just any regular Joe walking around. As
I learned in presumed innocence, well, I didn't learn this in presumed innocence, but as presumed innocent fortified here, that is circumstantial evidence. Okay, that is not.
Of course. Nobody's reporting that.
There's no definitive. There's no smoking gun here. That
speculating.
Is circumstantial evidence. So Landon,
we're speculating.
Landon, I just want to tell you, okay, I did not think you injured your toe on the slip and slide.
Well, maybe you're a rube. Maybe he's covering it up.
I'm not Ruben, Frank. Yes.
Also, one last thing on the guards. Important to note that Trevor Keegan, the 5th round pick, still has only spent time at left guard, no time at right guard. So Becton, I think, the front runner for now. All right, before we talk about the rest of practice, Zach, let's talk about our new sponsor, Bet365. Never ordinary with Bet365. Bet365 has 90 million users worldwide. Bet365 live streams 780,000 events each year, and they have pioneered live in-game betting. Today, Bet365 offers the widest range of games and markets available for live in-game betting across 78 sports. At Bet365, we don't do ordinary. We believe every sport should be epic. So right now, new customers can get $150 in bonus bets when you bet just $5. Use the code PHLY365 to sign up, deposit $10, and claim your offer. Whatever the sport, whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. They've also got great boost opportunities at Bet365. Again, they don't do ordinary. Every day, they power up the odds on hundreds of bets to give you a chance to win. With over 10,000 boosts every month, they boost specific markets, your winnings, and even parlays. So keep an eye out for their custom PHLY bets and boosts. Download the Bet365 app. Use code PHLY365 when you sign up and check out our boosts to see why it's never ordinary at Bet365. Must be 21 or older and physically located in PA. If you or someone you know has a gambling problem and wants help, call or text 1-800-GAMBLER. There we go. Bet365. Welcome to the family.
Bo and Julia, I want to issue an apology. I walked in here today. I said hello. I tried to be enthusiastic, but I did not wish you a happy National Wing Day. So I want to wish both of you and our audience watching at home and at work happy National Wing Day. How are you celebrating National Wing Day? Well, I want to tell you, come celebrate National Chicken Wing Day at Buffalo Wild Wings. BWW is where you can enjoy 6 free boneless or traditional wings with any $10 purchase. What better National Wing Day spirit is there than that? This offer is valid in stores all day today, July 29th, National Wing Day. We are currently offering limited flavor. They are currently offering limited time flavors such as Buffalo Ranch and Luau Barbecue. That sounds good.
Luau Cinder.
No. Download the Buffalo Wild Wings app and join the Blazin' Rewards program. Let's go to a sports bar.
Julia, should we forgive him or keep him on the hook for not wishing us National Wing Day? If it happens again next year, that's it. You're done.
I am actually going to put it in my. I'm going to put it in my. I have the calendar app here. I'm going to put that here. National Wing Day, July 29th, 2025. National Wing Day. Perfect. It's in there.
Beautiful.
Yeah. There's some other things I need to add in, but
on just that day.
Well, I was listening to a podcast yesterday, and actually they gave this interesting thing where they said, if something's bothering you, okay, put it in your calendar a month from now. Remember what bothered me a month ago. Okay. And it shows you like how quickly we move on from things. So it's something. I'm not saying a lot's bothering me, but I kind of want to try to exercise that type of thinking because I thought it was a good logic. Anyways,
what's bothering you?
I heard, I was there prepping before, and I smelled something good, and I looked up, and Bo was eating his chicken wings.
Yeah, I hadn't eaten all day long. I was ravenous.
Yeah, well, National Chicken Wings Day, and if you're hungry tonight, you can get 6 free boneless or traditional wings with any $10 purchase.
You see this thing about I forget which state it is, but the judge ruled that like somebody was suing that. Like the false advertising of boneless wings that had bones in them, and the judge ruled that it's okay. Like all of a sudden boneless means bones. Like what?
That wasn't in the New York Times.
The country's going to hell.
That was not in the New York Times this morning. So, nor the Philadelphia Inquirer. So, where did you read it?
I don't remember.
I'm curious where you get your news.
Wingday.com.
I'm afraid to put that one in as well.
You know what I thought was a funny moment, and I've been meaning to ask you about this. We haven't talked about this during Nick Sirianni's press conference this morning. I wonder if you clocked this as well. He was it was a Cam Jurgens question, and he was asked about the process of Cam Jurgens getting ready, and he's like, he had a chance to learn from the best of all time. Like if it was me, and he sort of paused, and he's like, if I had a chance to learn from Andy Reid, and then he mentioned Bill Belichick, and then he brought up Bill Walsh. But I think in his mind, Bill Belichick is the first one that came to mind, and he did not want to put out there Bill Belichick first as the best coach of all time, knowing the imbroglio of everything that has been reported.
I actually had a different interpretation. I thought it was interesting that he mentioned Andy Reid first.
That's what I mean.
Yeah, no, I'm saying because I focus more on the Andy Reid part of it than the Bill Belichick part of it.
Oh, because of the beef with Andy.
Well, just there's like, hey, first off, Andy beat him in the Super Bowl. Andy fired him essentially in Kansas City, and I think he
was so fired up after beating Andy last year.
Yeah, and I think there is this like Andy shadow a bit that is in the building now more than it was like during maybe the Doug time. I think all of Andy's success in Kansas City.
Interesting.
And I think it's like, there's some people in there who don't like when you bring up the Andy Reid era, right?
Why?
I don't know. It's just like you got to move on from
so
Andy.
silly,
Yeah. Well, I do think. I mean, we don't need to go down this rabbit hole, but I think there was like a period of time when I was like, yeah, the Eagles should have moved on from Andy, right? And now Andy goes on and he's having all this success, and so there's some like revisionist history. Well, they fired Andy Reid, right? Not to
nobody
say,
serious thinks that. Like,
off air, I can tell you some serious people who think that. Yes,
that they should never have fired Andy Reid.
Off air, I can tell you. I hate saying off air, but there's some.
It was clearly time for both sides to move on.
I thought it made sense for Andy. I thought it made sense for the Eagles. It actually would have been. I don't want to say like malpractice. That's an exaggeration, but you couldn't have brought Andy back for year 15 after that 4-12 year. But that's besides the point.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Yeah. I don't know who this off-air unserious person is, but odd.
If I write it in here, you will nod your head and you will say, "Oh, that makes sense."
Come on. I think unserious is exactly as I expected. Okay. Speaking of Nick Sirianni, I want to talk to you, Zach, about a thread that you were talking to Sirianni about, something that you've asked around about, something that he even mentioned in the beginning of the press conference when he was asked about what has impressed him, what he's seen from Jalen Hurts so far. You and I have talked about he's been good throughout what we've seen so far. And one of the first things he brought up is one of the things that he has really been impressed with is Jalen's ability to sort of sidestep pressure and get the ball out quickly on time to the backs. And you then asked him about the difference between guys in the progression versus designing stuff. And it was notable today that without Saquon Barkley, who was excused from practice for personal reasons, Jalen Hurts and the offense were still very much throwing to the running backs, both Will Shipley and Kenny Gainwell making plays. But let's start first with Sirianni. What did he say when you asked him about having talked about for the past few summers wanting to infuse the running backs into the passing game? Is there a chance that this is going to be a little bit more for real this time around? Yeah,
he said it's both and. He said that you want it to be a part of the scheme. There's also times when they're kind of the check down. He said the offense is still going to go through AJ, Devontae, and Dallas Goedert. So you're kind of looking at the fourth option thereafter. But it is, and I'm somewhat sympathetic to Nick Sirianni here because so his first summer here, 2021, he would not tell you anything about the scheme, but he said, one thing I will say is we're going to throw the ball to the running backs.
Nyheim Hines, baby.
Yes. Yeah. That's a part of this offense. It wasn't a part of the offense, really. And then the next year, you heard it a little more. And then it's like, all right, well, maybe they just don't trust Miles Sanders in the passing game. So then they bring in DeAndre Swift. And last summer, they're throwing DeAndre Swift every day. And he's saying he has receiver hands. And we asked the question, you were lowest in the NFL or you had the fewest targets to running backs last year in the NFL. That's going to change this year, right? Didn't happen. And so I said, maybe it's Jalen Hurts, right? So I actually think it's an important question for Kellen Moore as well, which is why I asked Moore this question. And he basically said that it is important to have this as part of the offense because he said it does have to be an outlet at times, but it's critical that we utilize those guys in the passing game to create horizontal space every once in a while and get them vertical. So we talked a lot about the spacing in it. I did think that when they drafted Will Shipley, not to say like Will Shipley foretells what's going to happen in the offense, but when I did some sniffing around on Shipley, what I kept hearing is they really like what he can be in the passing game. Okay? So it made me think, well, we did hear similar things about Gainwell, but that this is a function of the offense. And more than Shipley, I should say. I buried it. When we were talking about Barkley, when we were asking people about Barkley, I kept hearing that he's going to add a dimension to the passing game. And I said, well, Jalen Hurts needs to throw him the ball. So I did find it interesting as well that Shipley was as involved as he was today without Barkley, because I think that shows you this is something that they're trying to tell Jalen to do.
Yeah, listen, I remain generally skeptical that this is going to be as much as they say it is. But I do think it's going to be more than we've seen in years past. And I have been impressed. It has been notable to me that Jalen Hurts is throwing the ball to those guys within the flow of the offense. And it hasn't really, like, some of the DeAndre Swift stuff we saw last year was like screen heavy, and it has not really been screens so far that we've seen. There was a 4-play sequence today in 7-on-7, Zach, where it was all running backs, and it was 2 different kinds. It started with a quick check down. Jalen worked through his progression quickly, threw it to Will Shipley. Second one, they get Will Shipley on a wheel route past Julian Okwara, who was just rotating in. And then this was very funny to me because like Julian Okwara has to run all the way down the field, cover Will Shipley.
I saw
and then on the next play, they sub in Kenny Gainwell for Will Shipley. Okwara has to stay on the field, and they call the exact same play, another wheel route, and poor Okwara gets like even dusted, worse on this one because he's gassed. Jalen Hurts throws a nice one. That's 3 in a row, and then the next play was a check down to Gainwell. But I do think that I think Hurts' willingness to do this is an important factor. We've talked about, his style is because of what he brings to the table with his legs. The later he works through his progressions, the more likely it is that he's going to run and less likely that he's going to throw it to the running backs. This is a thing for most mobile quarterbacks. But I do think that it has been notable the way that he has done it so far. We'll see if it carries over to when he has the pads on and, he could just force the ball to A.J. Brown instead. But I believe it a little bit more than I did a week ago.
Yeah, I made this point last week that if you want Saquon to have a Christian McCaffrey type influence, it needs to be more than on the ground. Christian McCaffrey was a 67 catch player last year in 16 games with the 49ers. In the 11 games he was with the Niners the year before, he had 52 catches, right? So
he's not going to get to that.
I think it's going to be closer than you think.
What's your number?
How many games?
I mean
that's like, look, if he plays 8 games, it's not going to
Well, it's not my fault.
Okay. Let's go 50 catches.
Under.
If he has 50, if he plays at least 15 games, he'll have 50 catches.
Okay. What's the bet?
Should we do Pastificio? Is there a sponsor we can?
Yeah. Let's put it on the board.
Okay.
50 catches.
50 catches.
Okay.
If he the bet is void if he plays fewer than 14 games.
No.
Yes,
it's void if he plays fewer
literally just said
than
14 games.
Yeah, but that's 14 games. Come on.
Did you not listen to what I just said?
I heard what you said, but how about the bet is void if he plays fewer than 10 games?
Well, that's why I literally said 14.
Okay,
I said 50
this?
catches if he plays
How about
50
this?
Games. Yeah.
All the running backs combined, under 70 catches.
Oh, well, yeah. I think all the running backs combined are going to have under than 70 catches. If I'm saying 50 catches for Saquon, you think they're going to have 20 catches?
And you're telling me that Will Shipley is going to light the world on fire, going to be a big part of the offense. He's not going to have 20 catches?
I don't think Will Shipley's going to have. You think Will Shipley's going to have? I don't think he's going to have 20 catches.
I feel way better about Saquon under 50 than I do about running backs under 70. I think that one's much more likely to hit.
Oh, I disagree. How many times is Will Shipley and Kenny Gainwell going to play?
You're like the Mr. Will Shipley hype squad.
I'm saying this is a part of his skill set. I'm not saying that he's going to get 20 catches this season. 20 catches. I mean,
that's not that crazy.
I don't know if the number 3 receiver's going to get 20 catches. Now you think the number 2 running back's going to get 20
plus
catches?
Gainwell, you don't think they're going to get 20 catches after all the gas that you've been just piling on to Will Shipley? I mean, catches? Will Shipley is the same thing as Miles Sanders and LaShawn McCoy. He's not going to get 20 catches?
Well, that is a gross exaggeration from what I said. Well, I mean, should put some respect on LaShawn McCoy's name. LaShawn McCoy is the best running back in franchise history.
Well, I mean, Steve Van Buren is rolling over in his grave.
I would tell Steve Van Buren I said that.
I'd tell him to stand too.
LaShawn McCoy.
I can't believe how crazy you think 20 catches for Will Shipley is, given everything that you've talked about. The Eagles targeted this guy. He's a red star player. He's going to be a major part in the passing game.
I'm not betting lunch on Will Shipley getting 20 catches. I'm betting lunch on Saquon Barkley getting 50. You got to be prudent with your resources here, right? You can't just be throwing around
What a wild just peek into how little you believe in the things that you say.
I think it's nuts that I literally say 14 games, 50 catches, and then you agree to it,
15.
and then what's that?
You said 15.
No, I said 14.
No, the first time you said 15.
When we were talking about the bet, I said 14 games.
You said 15 to start, and then you said if he plays under 14, the bet is void.
You can roll back the tape. I'm fairly confident I said 14.
Somebody who's watching, roll back the tape. The first thing you said was if he plays 15 games, he's going to have 50
I'm going to
catches.
listen to this on the way home, and we'll see. But regardless, so then we agree to this, and you just change the game. You change the rules. That's like you're like stacking the court or something.
One was what you thought, and then the other was the bet.
Yeah.
I don't know.
All right, but
a lot of comments I see about Saquon Barkley and that posterior chain that he has.
Posterior chain?
It sort of reminds me of a story that I was working on, and I didn't end up using this, but one of Saquon's coaches from when he was little was talking about just the body type. He's like, I can't wait until he grows into those legs. So I thought that was interesting.
Oh, from the Eagles video.
No, that's just my own reporting.
Well, there's nothing wrong with that. I've spoken to many of these high school coaches. Great guys.
Okay. Next up, Bradberry. Tell me about what James Bradberry said on Saturday. Zach spoke for the first time since all of the cornerback acquisitions that they've had over the offseason. He's been working at safety with the second team. I actually thought he had a very good day today. Flashed a couple times, just reading things quickly, made a diving PBU at one point, made a nice read on a swing pass to Tyrion Davis-Price that I think would have led to a TFL. What did he say about just the way that he's approaching things, and do you think that this is going to last?
Well, he said right now quite a bit, and I frame it that way because in multiple answers, he said, I'm on the team right now. Right now, I'm on the team. And so it's important. And you gave advice to the aspiring reporters out there. I'll give a piece of advice. Listen to what the people like. There's a lot of times when people are in press conferences and they just have something that they want to ask, but they're not actually listening. Like, listen to what he said. He's trying to send you a message here. So he was saying right now quite a bit. And that was not by accident because he knows that the situation here is tenuous. He has not requested a trade. He said he's going to let Howie Roseman handle that. He said, we had a conversation. And he was talking about his future with the team. We had a conversation, and right now I'm still on the team. And while I'm on the team, I'm going to try to find my role. And if they want to get rid of me, they'll get rid of me. I'm on the team right now, so I'm taking it day by day because in the NFL, you never know. I could be traded. I could not be traded, so I'm preparing for anything. A little background here. He went to them with the idea of moving to safety. He recognized, and I give Bradberry credit, he was honest. He recognized he did not play well last year. He knew Isaiah Rodgers was coming back from suspension. He figured the Eagles would draft cornerbacks. He knew what the safety depth chart was. He brought this idea to them. They were willing to put him out there, like we've been talking about ever since I would say February, because we talked about this at the Combine. The contract's guaranteed. So the Eagles paid Bradberry $9.64 million from an option back in March. Okay, he has a guaranteed base salary of $1.21 million. So if they traded him, then someone else would, then you get cap relief on that, right? But if the Eagles cut him, they pay him the base salary anyways, right? So there's no financial incentive. We've talked about the opportunity cost, but he was honest about the way he played. He was hopeful that safety could be something that could suit him well. He said last year didn't show it, but he thinks he's a physical player. He thinks he's smart. He actually got recruited in college to play safety. He's been the biggest guy in every room that he's been in. He said you have to talk more at safety than at corner. So he's kind of getting used to that. But he saw what the depth chart was. He was honest about the way he played. And he said, I try to be adaptive. I'm on the team right now. So while I'm on the team, I want to find a role in this team. And I feel like I'm a versatile player. I feel like if I'm a versatile player, I'll have a role. Of course I want to start. Now, where am I going to start? But I'm working right now at safety to learn that and try to play that and see if I can be a valuable asset there. He also acknowledged that it's not as if he won't play cornerback again, and he still can play cornerback. But this is kind of where he thinks he can help the team. So I think that he's being earnest, that he recognizes...
being James.
Okay. Using earnest as an adjective and not as a noun. I think he's being earnest in that he could cause a sting. He could say, "Look, I have the leverage. You're paying me no matter what. What am I doing here?" Right? And maybe he said something like that. But I do think he's a professional. He's trying to make this work. He's taken, he's been willing to be with the second team.
Did he talk about his body at all? Has he changed his body?
Now, he says he's always been the biggest guy.
Okay.
That's when he gave that answer. So he was a big corner. So he acknowledged that. But yeah, they don't know how this is going to go. He said he has experience playing on the inside last year. It did not go particularly well.
Right.
But that, he said, safeties play dime. Safeties play in the nickel. So I'm curious to see. I still don't think he's going to be on the team this year, but we also saw this.
You listening to what he was saying and the message that he was putting out there and the emphasis on right now.
Yeah.
What did you make of that? Do you think this is like the Zach Ertz situation?
That's exactly what I was about to say. I think
they're going to maybe call everybody else's bluff and keep him on the roster for a couple of weeks and then trade him. How do you think it plays out?
Yeah, so I was talking with someone on the sideline today, and Sheil, if you're watching, I'm not mentioning the person by name because I don't know if that was on the record. Okay, but and the person thought Bradberry was going to be on the team, and I said I don't think that they want him.
Jeffrey?
No, it was not Jeffrey. Okay. I don't think they want him on the team, but you saw this with Ertz. Howie does not want to just cut someone when there's no financial incentive to do it. And so I think Howie's going to try to play the clock out to try to get a trade, and will do everything he can to get a trade. Now, we've already seen the Rams be stricken by injuries. We've seen the Vikings be stricken by injuries, right? So early in camp, you don't see as many trades because teams take the first 2 weeks to kind of see what they have. But I think once you get to the preseason, I imagine Bradberry's going to play in the preseason. I imagine they'll audition him. And there's going to be, I think behind the scenes and in public comments, the Eagles are going to talk Bradberry up. I do know pro scouting directors, or I'm sorry, not pro scouting directors, pro scouts mine like Twitter feeds and articles, right, for different intel. And I think this is something that the Eagles or sometimes when they're speaking, they're speaking to the rest of the league. There's actually a good piece by Kalen Kaler at ESPN about about the head coach Matt Eberflus from the Bears, and like one of the things that the media consultants were saying to him is that you're not speaking to the media, you're speaking to like your players whenever you're up there. And I think sometimes, especially when Howie's up there, he's speaking to like his players and the rest of the league.
Yeah, well said. Well, I think if you were James Bradberry and you wanted to be described in a certain way, you might say he locked things down on the outside.
What a transition.
You know what I mean? He lock. Well, let's talk a little TrueMark Financial Credit Union, because the HELOC allows homeowners to borrow against home equity with a variable interest rate. Home equity line of credit. That's the HELOC here. Preserve your savings and get access to funds as needed for big renovations, education expenses, or emergencies. Using TrueMark Financial's budgeting tools to save for special purchases like limited edition merchandise, plus the regular contributions accumulate over time to reach your savings goals effectively. Transferring as little as $5 a week gives you $260, more than enough for a Kelly Green jersey if you want one. TrueMark Financial is federally insured by the NCUA and is an equal opportunity lender. For more information, visit truemark.com/PHLY. That's TRUMARK.
I know next July 29th, I'll be celebrating National Wing Day, and the July 29th after that, and July 29th after that. And all these years, there's a lot that's going to change. One thing that won't is that I'll probably wash down those wings with a nice cold Miller Lite.
Hey, second back, baby.
Because a lot has changed over the years, and one thing that hasn't is the great taste of Miller Lite. Another thing that hasn't is that it's less filling. So what is the best thing about the original light beer? Well, Miller Lite has sparked this debate. They sparked it in 1975, and we still haven't settled it. You can enjoy those wings with a great tasting ice cold Miller Lite that's also less filling. It's undebatable quality, great taste, and it's only 96 calories. Okay, it's the beer that strips away everything you don't need and holds on to what matters most. The light beer that tastes like beer, less filling, only 96 calories. The original light beer since 1975. You don't have to choose what's best. Miller Lite has great taste and is less filling. Tastes like Miller time. To get Miller Lite delivered right to your door, visit MillerLite.com/PHLY Birds, or you can find it pretty much anywhere that sells beer. Celebrate responsibly. Miller Brewing Company, Milwaukee, Wisconsin. 96 calories per 12 ounces, fewer calories and carbs than premium regular beer.
There was something else that James Bradberry sort of threw in as an aside in that press conference that caught your ears, Zach.
Yeah, he was talking. I like that question. He was talking about the depth chart, and he's like, we have our starters at corner. Isaiah Rodgers is a good player. They're going to want to play the rookie Quinyon Mitchell. So if you kind of read between the lines there, it certainly sounds like PHLY Ringo could be the front runner to start. And today's practice was the third consecutive day when PHLY Ringo was first up on the outside at corner. What did you make of that?
I think he is in the pole position. Yeah, I think it is his job to lose for week 1.
I would agree. I think he's played well this summer. I think there's like a night and day disparity or difference rather between this summer and last summer. The question with him has always kind of been change of direction. We'll see. I'm curious if he's going to get some work in preseason games because
I would imagine he'll get some work.
There's not like a strong sample size of him in the NFL. I thought he played well late in the season last year. I think of the Seattle game. I think of the Giants game, the first Giants game. We've talked about this since the time he was drafted. Like height, weight, speed, you can't draw up a better corner. 6'2", 207, 4'3", 840. We talked about how young he was. We talked about 2 years of starting experience at Georgia. But we also talked about the fact that he slipped to the 4th round in the draft, and that's the league telling you something. And the question was, does he have the change of direction you need to play on the outside? Now, granted, I really liked the pick when they made it. I'm on record saying that. And then during camp last year, I was not impressed. And I said, oh, maybe the league's right here. But now that we see it this summer, yeah, I do think he is ahead. And I think you've framed it well. You changed the way I thought about this. So I give you credit. When we talked about the Quinyon Mitchell of this all, and I said like it'd be a disappointment if Quinyon doesn't start. And you said, not in so many words, but I should think of Quinyon less as like the Bradberry replacement this year and more the Slay replacement next year. Mm-hmm. And I think that's a good way of thinking about it. Like Quinyon doesn't necessarily need to start day 1 on the outside. It will be a disappointment if he's not starting next year when presumably Slay's not here.
And yet, Quinyon Mitchell, while PHLY Ringo and Isaiah Rodgers have been rotating on the outside, Quinyon Mitchell has been spending some time with the starters inside, a little bit in dime on Saturday, it sounds like. And then today, Avonte Maddox was a little bit more focused on safety. And so Quinyon Mitchell was at times the first team nickel. So it does seem as if they are bringing him along at a pace where they do expect him to contribute as a rookie.
Yeah. And part of that is DeJean not being out there. Like I thought DeJean would be the front runner to start in the slot this year. But if you're operating under, I don't want to say the presumption, but the strong possibility that Ringo could start day 1, Mitchell is someone who's done this before. Like Vic Fangio's answer the other day suggested that they didn't know from his college tape if he could play on the inside, but he did have experience on the inside in college. I just think it's more when they drafted him. Howie Roseman said they don't want to put too much on him. They want to focus on one spot. But perhaps seeing PHLY Ringo in the spring, and they came back and they said, like PHLY's going to play, right? And if PHLY doesn't play, Rodgers is going to play. So maybe we should see Mitchell on the inside.
All right, some other sort of, in the weeds updates from practice today. Linebackers continue to rotate and like with different pairings. So, you saw Devin White and Zach Bond together. You saw Nakobe Dean and Zach Bond together. You saw Devin White and Jeremiah Trotter Jr. together. You saw Ben Van Sumeren and Nakobe Dean together. They continue to rotate that group and in pairs, and I think they're looking for whatever chemistry they can find there. As we talked about, I thought the defensive line this was their best day. Mm. You had Jalen Carter making most of the noise. Jordan Davis was standing out to me, both also as there was a nice play where he and Bryce Huff, which is kind of the first time I've noticed Bryce Huff in a positive way, totally sniffed out a Jalen Hurts keeper, which was a good read, but Davis was getting some pressure, and some of it on Mekhi Becton, to be fair, to circle back to the top of the show, but a solid day for Jordan Davis, I thought.
And how about Nolan Smith? What did you make of Nolan Smith today?
I didn't much notice Nolan Smith today. Did you?
Yeah, I thought Nolan Smith had some productive pass rushes today. Okay. I'll have some more stuff on him sometime this summer, but he added muscle this offseason. He says he's bigger. We'll kind of see, but I thought Nolan Smith looked decent around the edge today.
Okay. I will say, I had my first sort of flash
Ooh.
of something today
Whoa, it's
from
getting steamy
somebody.
in here.
I can't.
Yes.
The pads have not come on yet, so there's nothing to be said here. But for the first time this summer, I saw a little something from somebody. So just something to keep in mind.
Can we play 20 questions?
No.
Okay, so
You can write down who you think it was today, but we'll see if that carries on.
I'm not ready to do that yet.
Okay.
Yeah. I was watching practice for me, not for you. So
Okay.
I wasn't playing matchmaker.
Another bit of news from the weekend, Zach, that I would love you to explain to our listeners. A change with the doctors.
Oh, yes. Okay. I'm glad you brought this up. The thing about training camp is like every day's a season. It seems like, right? You forget it sometimes. Yeah, this was interesting. So I'm on the sideline before practice, and I'm standing there with Jeff McClain and Mike Garafolo. Flex.
You mean Jimmy Kempski?
Oh, yeah, that's a good joke. And I see a very familiar face on the sideline. And I said, "Is that Peter DeLuca?" And now you have to be a sicko to understand what I was talking about there. Peter DeLuca was a long time, team physician for like 2 decades for the Eagles. Following the 2018 season, the Eagles made a change, and Peter DeLuca was no longer the team physician. And it was behind the scenes a very notable thing that occurred, right? The team physician's a very important role, and there was a lot going on behind the scenes then, and then they didn't necessarily make some changes that stuck. Ultimately, they cycled through, I don't want to say a few different things, but there was a season in limbo, and then they made another change. They brought in Arsh Denoda, who's now the chief medical officer and has a very strong reputation. But anyways, Peter DeLuca is back with the team now as the head orthopedic physician. Okay, and so this is notable. Now, from my understanding, from reporting / like he's not reporting to Howie Roseman. He's reporting to Arsh Denoda. So there's no change in the organizational structure. But there are some changes here from like a medical perspective, the medical staff perspective. They're bringing in Peter DeLuca, someone who has a lot of experience, certainly respected. But behind the scenes, this is a very notable move because players care a lot about like who their doctor is, and doctors have a major effect on. They can't control injuries, but they have a major effect on the team's health.
Yeah, I mean, there's literally no way for us to evaluate how good of a job the doctor
There's
is
no
doing.
Stats I can get you.
But I do think it is funny that an organization that we poke fun at for their lack of creativity and like just re-signing guys who have left is doing that with a doctor.
Yeah, I think there's a lot
It's
more.
like, Jay Ajayi's back available. Why don't we bring him in again?
I think it's a little bit different. I think it's a little bit, or I think it's quite.
But it is funny.
It's quite a bit different. Not necessarily. I mean, it's different to bring back a player who's been injured than bring back a doctor. I mean, I don't think this, I don't think this is unimaginative. I think it's like you. I mean, how many doctors are there who you trust as your team physician, right? They or your head orthopedic physician, I should say. Yeah, I agree with you on some things there. I don't think that's the case there. I think there's a lot there that can be. I'm
not saying it's the wrong thing to do. I just think it's funny, given that we make fun of them for that.
No, I think there's a lot there that can be reevaluated from the 2018-2019 season.
Okay. Anything else from practice today, Zach, that caught your eye?
Sorry, from practice today that caught my eye. Yeah, well, from a personnel perspective, like
what time is it?
It's 2:54.
Oh, that's interesting. Kenny Pickett just released the ball in 7-on-7.
Oh, man. Jeez, you really don't like Kenny Pickett, huh?
I've never seen anybody take so long to get rid of the ball in 7-on-7 as Kenny Pickett so far. Although, actually, that's not true. Marcus Mariota last year. It's been at least a year.
Yeah, Zach Vaughn, another day as the top linebacker option. Now, they are mixing and matching there.
The top linebacker option?
Or the top linebacker
some time with the
top linebacker comp. The first group up.
Yeah, maybe.
Zach Vaughn was there. Yeah. Nakobe Dean's mixing in there.
Yeah.
So that stood out. I think Johnny Wilson was getting first team reps, getting first team reps inside. I've seen that before this summer, and that's interesting to me because we typically think of Johnny Wilson as an X receiver. But
not a lot of action though. Still, he does not get a lot of balls thrown his way.
No, but the tight end of it all. There was one play in particular when he was kind of used in a blocking role. He was a slot receiver, but he was used kind of. He was blocking the edge rusher.
I was impressed that Nick Sirianni was able to name every wide receiver on the roster today in his answer.
Really?
Yeah.
You don't think you could have done that?
I think I might have forgotten somebody, yeah. I mean, he's got a lot of things to think about.
Wait, those are his
He even
players.
got Griffin Hebert in there.
Yeah, I'm not that impressed by that.
Okay.
I would actually be unimpressed if he can't name every receiver, right? Like you should know who
he couldn't name Tyler Steen in the spring.
You should know who your receivers are. No, it's different in March. He's like these are his 90 guys right now.
I know, but still,
come on, that's a very low bar. That's a very low bar. Could you name every receiver from the Super Bowl team 2017?
Well, yeah, but maybe not everybody on the 90-man roster entering camp.
If it was your job to, well, I mean,
well, sure, but I mean, he's still
the head coach of the
speaking
team.
Extemporaneously.
I'm not gonna get look. No,
Speaking of Kenny Pickett, by the way, shout out to the listener who did a great bit with me today. And he mentioned Carson Smucker, who used to work for the Eagles content department, and he just came up to me and goes, Carson Smucker says hello. And I didn't put together at first that this was a callback to the Michael Dunn says hello to Kenny Pickett, but a great job by that guy.
Great job. Yeah. Well done.
Nicely done. Also, the first time I would say since returning from vacation where I almost snuck out of vacation Bo mode, I'm still there.
The EJ thing wasn't
that was bit. This Eagles tweet from, I think it was yesterday.
Okay.
It says, we, U-O-U-I, the French we.
Oh, yes.
We loving this Jalen Paris connection. Now, okay.
I mean,
I've been having fun with the Paris Campbell French thing going on. Obviously, the Olympics are in France, right? So you want to dip your toe there. You got Jason Kelce in the beret. But this doesn't make any sense. We love it. That's yes. Yes, loving this Jalen Paris connection. Do the whole thing in French. Don't do it. This pun is bad. Julia?
I agree.
Okay. I think it's
Why loving this Jalen Paris connection? No.
Yeah, that's what I was
How about it just a No, that'll do it.
I think the correct.
I mean, and also, like, can we get a baguette emoji in here instead of the other emojis here? Like, let's go.
Yeah,
if we're gonna lean in here, lean in.
No, I think the correct course of action is to be very respectful of a language and a culture, and do a and a baguette, right?
Why?
J'adore les Français. So I've never been to Paris, though. I've been to Vegas. And I've seen the Eiffel Tower in Vegas.
Same thing.
Same thing.
All right. Anything else?
Yeah. There's a lot that let me just kind of recollect my thoughts here. We didn't talk Saturday. A few things from Saturday. I thought Britton Covey had a good practice on Saturday, and he continues to kind of make some plays here. Pay attention to that. I thought as I go through here, the days might be running together. Tyron Davis-Price had a good run. Join Okwara had a good practice on Saturday, I thought. Made some. Okay. Yeah. I think if you're talking about kind of depth edge guys, he is someone to watch there.
He called out those guys and Patrick Johnson today for bringing the energy that he was looking for, and Jalex Hunt as well, but not Bryce Huff.
He was probably talking about down the depth chart guys, but okay. Well, you mentioned Nolan Smith.
What were you talking to Josh Sweat today?
Yeah.
Actually, I saw this play out because Avonte Maddox was talking, and they announced, and it was, I mean, I wish that I had taken a video of this. You're sitting there in the press conference for Avonte Maddox, and they announced Josh Sweat in the mix zone, and I don't know if I've ever seen anybody move faster than Zach getting up and running. I mean, like it was like I finally got to see what you being the valet guy would have been like. The way the speed that you had.
Let me clarify this here, okay?
Josh Sweat makes it.
All right, a few things here. There are certain players who.
And by the way, make sure that you like and subscribe, all that good stuff on the YouTube channel.
There are certain players who talk quite a bit. There are certain players who don't talk quite a bit. There are certain players who you're waiting to hear from.
He didn't even finish the sentence.
In a locker room setting, you go up and you just talk to the player. During training camp, during OTAs, they bring the players out, okay? So, for instance, James Bradberry the other day, I was talking to somebody else, and I rushed over there to talk to Bradberry. I also think not to pat like myself or ourselves on the back. I think sometimes there's like obvious questions but they might like I don't want to say like ruffle feathers, but like people sometimes they skirt around questions or and I think sometimes asking like a direct question and 13 years on the beat, you have relationships with all these guys, like you're not afraid to, or like
there's also a game you got to play because if it's on the podium, you can watch that after the fact, right?
Yeah. So anyway, so I wanted to know why Josh Sweat agreed to restructure his deal. Okay. And now there's other I actually think fans are curious about the number 19 part of it. Why he changed his number. He said he just wanted a fresh start. It's like when he cut his hair a few years ago. He feels it feels clean. There's nothing special about 19. He wanted 15, but that is retired. Van Buren, second best running back in Eagles history. And then he wanted 9. That's like unofficially retired. Nick Foles, right?
25 not retired.
25 is unofficially. No one's worn 25 since LaShawn. So it's similar to number 9. Okay. But he said about restructuring the deal, he said he really didn't think about that. He left it to his agent. He said his agent handled that. He said he just wants to get right this year. That was kind of his thought. He said that would work itself out.
He's got a lot of trust in that agent if that's true. That sounds very shady to me.
He said, I said you've never played on a contract year before. Like he signed that extension pretty early on. And I asked what went wrong last year. I used that stat about the middle of 22 to middle of 23. And he said, there's a lot that goes in, you just have to kind of, when the opportunity's there, you have to take advantage of it. He said he's not going to hunt sacks. It's not as if 4th and 1, he's going to be trying to get a sack. But he certainly knows the importance of sacks. I asked him what Vic Fangio said about that you can tell if he's back or not by his movement skills. And he said, yeah, he's the smoothest guy on the team at any position. So he's glad Vic said that. He's moving really well.
Okay.
But I wanted to speak to.
So he didn't really have a good answer for why he agreed to that.
No, and I asked it a few times. He genuinely, he was like, I didn't deal with that. That was like my agent.
It sounds kind of weird.
I mean, the agent's probably outlining this is what's happening. These are the teams that are interested, right? My guess is the answer to that is first I asked him why did you redo the deal, and he kind of laughed the obvious answer is they asked him to redo the deal, and I said why did you agree to do that, right? And so I have the exact quote actually up here, but he essentially said, and I know Josh a bit, he's a
builds computers.
Yeah, I do think sometimes he doesn't concern himself with the things that I obsess over every detail of any contract that I sign. Right? I don't know if that's Josh's personality.
I mean, you wouldn't agree to a lunch bet.
He said, "I let my agent handle it with those guys. I just want to play. I didn't even really think about it in the offseason. I just approach it the same way, just to get better. I really didn't think about it. Just get it right so I can come back and play and focus on what I need to focus on."
All right.
So that was that was Josh Sweat. I was saying something about Saturday's practice, but the reason I rushed there is I wanted to ask Josh Sweat questions because the next time I talk to Josh Sweat might be during the regular season, right?
I hope Josh Sweat saw the way you moved. It might give him some help on getting to the quarterback.
I mean, these guys should know that. These guys should know I want to talk to them. I'm not. I've said this before, and I'm honest about it. I'm not here wasting their time. I'm not it's not just.
For Josh Sweat, but all of a sudden, Avonte Maddox is sitting on the podium, and he sees you stand up and run away from him.
No, it's not. Well, there's a few things there. First off, like you mentioned, you're always getting the podium stuff. I listened back to all the podium stuff, so everyone is at the podium I listen to. But
Just sees a cloud of smoke.
I'm fairly confident that I will talk to Avonte Maddox again this summer. Okay, I'm not as confident I'll talk to Josh Sweat again this summer. And if the Eagles PR staff's watching it, like, yeah, I would tell them that. Like, there's certain guys who this might be your crack at them, and there are certain guys where it's like, all right, like Avonte Maddox, really nice guy. I imagine he'll be agreeable to interviews in the future.
Okay.
There was a question I was waiting to ask Avonte Maddox, which was, I want to know what the sleep tracking data is telling him.
Why?
Because that was a big emphasis of his this offseason, right? So you follow up. So you actually listen to what somebody says,
Okay.
and then you circle back.
For the people who
follow
didn't
up.
see it, what was the thing?
During the spring?
Yeah.
He was talking about like getting healthier. One thing he's really focusing on is his sleep. So I wear the Oura Ring. He has the Oura Ring and the Whoop Band. Yeah, I mean, it's important to track sleep. There was a good story in ESPN last week. Stephen Holder, I believe, wrote it about how head coaches are embracing sleep.
Yes, and Zach, let's now dig into this. As someone who fetishizes the head coach and anybody in leadership position,
I don't
that
fetishize
these
head
guys know
coaches.
everything about everything.
I'm not-
How do you now internalize that lesson that sleep
Yeah.
is important?
I know sleep is important. It's easier to have that approach when you're the head coach than if you're a quality control coach or an assistant coach working your way up the feet. Like, you don't want to be out work. You're trying to get to the mountaintops. Like
Big whoop is what you're saying.
No, look, it's easier to, like, I think sleep is important. I also think you got to get the work done, right? And if you don't get the work done, like, someone else is going to do it. And so you just got to deal with it.
You just got to deal with it.
Yeah, like the other night, I was
What
celebrating my mom's
what
birthday.
if you were pushing through to get everything done, and I'm not saying this is the case, but it's a lower quality of work because you're just trying to get it all done.
Well,
And if you exchange that for getting better sleep, then the quality would outdo the quantity.
I don't think it's mutually exclusive. I think there's times you can catch up on sleep, and I think there's times when you just gotta suck it up, right? Now I got to do better with it this season. It's one of my goals. It's been a goal of mine in the past that I've fallen short on, so I hope I'm better at it this year. But I'm not like this is the thing. No one cares how hard you work, right? They just care that the work's done. So I'm not trying to talk about, like, putting in the hours. I'm saying, like, at the end of the day, the work, the show needs to be good, the stories need to be good, the reporting needs to be good. And if it's not, it doesn't matter. I don't care if you sleep 10 hours, if you sleep 3 hours, show me that, like, there's an expression from Bill Parcells. Okay, there's an expression from Bill Parcells. It says, "Don't tell me about the labor, just show me the baby." Right? And, like, I kind of
yes,
I kind of
famously anti-woman.
Is he famously anti-woman? I don't know.
I don't care what you went through. Just give me that baby that you made with your body and forced out.
Okay, I'm not, it's an expression to say, like, it's about I care about the work, right? So we don't need to get into that. It's 3:08.
Okay.
Yeah.
Super chat from Jalen All Day Sicko says, Parisians have mini Statue of Liberty in the Seine.
Very nice.
Okay. What?
Appreciate that, John. Yeah.
Thanks for the money. Ho, ho, ho.
That's okay.
Merci beaucoup.
That laugh is like, isn't that, like, offensive to the French? It's like a.
I mean, all of France is watching right now, and they're not
It's
taking
like a
any
parody.
offense.
Okay.
All right. That'll do it for this episode of the PHLY Eagles podcast. That's going to do it. We'll talk to you tomorrow. Big day. The pads are on. Finally. Some football. Some pad crunching. Hopefully we get an Oklahoma drill. We won't, but hopefully we get one-on-ones from the offensive and defensive line for the first time all summer. We'll have exhaustive notes of that on allphly.com. More notes on practice, if you are a diehard, that you can read today on allphly.com. Read Zach's story on James Bradberry, and much more to come throughout the week. Here at 2 o'clock all week long for Julia and Zach. I'm Bo. We thank you for listening. We'll talk to you tomorrow. And as always, we love you.
We all silly like the mayor.